Studying one verse of the Torah can often take you into many surprising areas and different roads and paths, and sometimes into super weird stuff like aliens, giants, the origin of the Cainite people, and so on. And some of the things that I will be touching on here, you can find more on in other videos, including one by my rabbi, which explores extraterrestrial life in Judaism, or ETs in the Torah, and stuff like this. And I'll show how all of this is connected to the Nephilim. Um, in the end, it's all, and actually some extremely weird gematria to go with it. You'll see how this is all connected to Noahides, converts, and so on. So let's begin with the Torah portion. This is from last week, Beshalach, which you can see here. Exodus 13:17. We're only going to be studying this verse, and I'll show you why it caught my attention. As you know, I'm going through and finding instances of Noahides or God-fearers, 7 laws following monotheists, ethical monotheists. So, one God, 7 laws for all the world. This is before the giving of the Torah at Sinai, just before, which actually happens this week, and we'll study that as well. So 13:17, now when Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them by way of the land of the Philistines, although it was nearer. For God said, the people may have a change of heart or regret when they see war and return to Egypt. And I noticed immediately upon reading this verse, in my search for Noahide related things, the name you can find here, the name Noah, although obviously it's not translated there, but even with this final mem, it becomes Nahum, which is one of Noah's names. Various members of his family called him by various names, one of them being Nahum or Nachman or Menachem. So we can, and if you were to add a yud right here, it would become Noachim or Noahides. And then when you see here this change of heart or regret, you can see Noah's name in there again. And then there is the yud. So if you put it right here, so that's the word for a change of heart. And you'll see how both of these words are connected to Noah. So this word here that we've highlighted means he guided them. So God guided them. And this one is for regret or a change of heart, as we'll see here in Genesis 5:29, when Noah is named. He named him Noah, saying, this one will provide us relief or rest from our work and from the toil of our hands, out of the very soil which the Lord has placed under a curse. So right there they're making this connection between Noah and this rest or comfort. And I've seen in other sources where they say this is kind of a reference to Noah and Shabbat, or the 7th day at least. And that they say that even Noah was a Sabbath observer, or at least honored the Sabbath, at least what it was in his time. And then we have this regret in Genesis 6. And the Lord regretted that he had made man on earth, and his heart was saddened. This is right before the flood. So this connection to Noah again. So same verse. Ramban now, one of the greatest sages of all. And the reason for war was that they would pass through to the path of the land of the Philistines, and the Philistines would not let them pass in peace. And then they would return to Egypt. But on the path of the wilderness, they would not see war until they were in their land, in the land of Sihon and Og, kings of the Amorites, that was given to them, and they would be far from Egypt at that time. So it's very interesting to me that when you look at the sources on this verse that has Noah's names in it, we have a character connected to Noah. Og is connected to Noah. As you'll see, Og was a giant. And it says, rather, it must be a miracle that was performed for them, namely by that the water on the sides of the ark of Noah cooled, allowing the ark, the Ramah, so the, I guess, unicorn, and Og to survive. Og was a giant who was able to survive the flood by staying to the side of the ark. It says here, Og sat down on a piece of wood under the gutter of the ark. And this means that he survived without food for 365 days. So this remnant of Cain, kind of this giant, was able to survive the flood. And there's your connection to Noah. He went on to be Og, king of Bashan, which means he lived an extremely long time. They say that years were added to his life because Og, according to some, is Eleazar, the servant of Abraham. It's very interesting. This connection between Og and Eleazar, Abraham's servant, who we've covered here many times on this channel. And here's one of my favorite little sources. There were 9 who entered the Garden of Eden alive. Enoch, the son of Yared. It's just interesting because Yared's one of Moses' names. Elijah, the Messiah. Eleazar, the servant of Abraham. Hiram, king of Tyre. Ebed-Melech, the Cushite. Yabetz, remember that name? Yabetz, son of Rav Yehuda the prince. Bitya, the daughter of Pharaoh who raised Moses, who became a Noahide, was a ger of some description, and raised Moses and named him. It's very interesting, of course, that baby Moses was inside of a little ark of his own floating on the Nile. And then he's found by this woman who has converted to monotheism, even though she's surrounded by idolatry. Very interesting indeed. And you'll notice many of the people on this list are not Jewish. Okay, same verse. Even though it had been God's plan to lead the Israelites to Mount Sinai to receive the Torah from there, and only from there, to the land of Israel, as he stated himself in Exodus 6, verse 7 to 8, I will take you as my people, and I will bring you to the land, etc. At this point, God's plan was to lead them to the Sea of Reeds, which was neither the route to the land of the Philistines, nor the route that led to Mount Sinai. The major reason for this was to bring about the drowning of Pharaoh and his army in the sea. Okay, very interesting. The whole point was to bring about the drowning of Pharaoh and his army and these chariots. An example of God acting in this manner is described in Judges 4:7, where God himself speaks about how he dragged Sisera and his army in 900 armored vehicles or chariots across the river Kishon to face Barak. It's very interesting. The simplest route to get to the Sea of Reeds was by traversing the land of the Philistines, but God did not want them to travel this route because it was too close to Egypt, and then they would return to their ways. So they're making this connection between the chariots and the incident at the Sea of Reeds where all the Egyptians were drowned, and Pharaoh, and this incident in Judges with Sisera, where his army went down and all those chariots as well. And you'll see the connection here. The Holy One, blessed be he, said to the ministering angel of the sea, spew out the dead Egyptians onto dry land. Okay, they're wondering, why didn't the sea just swallow the Egyptians whole. The ministering angel said before him, Master of the universe, is there a servant whose master gives him a gift and takes it from him? Since the dead Egyptians were given to me for my fish to eat, how can you retract your gift? God said to the sea, I will give you 1.5 times their number. Although I am taking them back now, later I will give you 1.5 times as many people. In the case of the Egyptians, it is stated 600 chosen chariots, whereas with regard to Sisera, who was defeated at Kishon Brook, it is written 900 chariots of iron. The ministering angel said before him, Master of the universe, is there a servant who issues a claim against his master for a gift promised to him? Who will be the guarantor? God said to the ministering angel, the Kishon Brook will be a guarantor for me. Immediately, the sea spewed the Egyptians out onto the land, and the Jewish people came and saw that they were dead, as it says in Exodus 14:30. And it says here, the Holy One, blessed be He, told the earth to bury the slain. The earth said to him, Sovereign of all worlds, the waters have killed them. Let the waters swallow them. He answered the earth, saying, On this occasion receive them. On another occasion, such that be killed by thee in the future will I cast into the sea, namely Sisera and all his host. These I will cast into the sea, as it is said, the river Kishon swept them away, that ancient river, from Judges 5. The earth continued to say to him, Give me the oath by thy right hand that thou will not claim them at my hand. The Holy One, blessed be He, put forth his hand and swore to the earth that he would not claim them, as it is said in the verse that are quoted here. All the kings of the earth heard of the departure of... listen to this. All the kings of the earth heard of the departure from Egypt and the dividing of the sea of reeds. They trembled and feared and fled from their place. As it is said, the peoples have heard and they tremble. Who are they talking about here? God-fearers. This was a moment in history that made converts to monotheism and people who followed the one God, the creator of everything. So here we are in Judges 5, because Kishon is from this verse, and we'll see how this is all connected to a very mysterious place or person or star called MEROZ. And this is where it starts to get very spacey and little hints of, I guess, alien or extraterrestrial activity. The stars fought from heaven. From their courses they fought against Sisera. So we've just had the incident with Sisera and Yael, who is the wife of Heber the Cainite. Heber the Cainite is either Jethro or his son. So of course she takes the tent peg and drives it through Sisera's skull when he's fleeing because his entire army has been wiped out. And there's a hint here as well about when it comes to his chariots. The torrent Kishon swept them away. The raging torrent, the torrent Kishon, march on, my soul, with courage. Then the horses' hooves pounded as headlong galloped the steeds. Here we have, Curse you, MEROZ, said the angel of the Lord. Bitterly curse its inhabitants, because they came not to the aid of the Lord, to the aid of the Lord among the warriors. This is all hints of the Cainites and the Nephilim, and I'll show you how. The Gerim, if you remember from Genesis 6:4, the Gerim are connected to the Nephilim. Remember, these are the mighty ones. And actually, I can prove that very easily as well, because these Gerim are the Nephilim? It says here the Nephilim were in the land in those days. This is from Genesis 4. And they have 7 names, and then they list them. Here they are right here, the Gerim, the mighty ones. We mentioned Og earlier. Here are the Anakim, which are the giants, and Og is the giant. So here we have Gerim, Anakim, the giants, mighty ones, and the Nephilim, and here as well. So, again, curse MEROZ because they didn't come to the aid of God and his people. But it then continues, most blessed of women be Yael, wife of Heber the Cainite. Most blessed of women, intense. He asked for water, she offered milk. In a princely bowl she brought him curds. Her left hand reached for the tent pin, her right for the workman's hammer. She struck Sisera, crushed his head, smashed and pierced his temple. At her feet he sank, lay outstretched. At her feet he sank, lay still. Where he sank, there he lay, destroyed. Now look at this verse. We just said that the Gerim are the Nephilim, and these are the Cainites. Here is Nephil, the root of Nephilim, 3 times in the exact same verse. Very interesting. And then just one more little hint. Through the window peered Sisera's mother. Behind the lattice she whined, why is his chariot so late in coming? Why so late the clatter of his wheels? Here's the word for chariot. It's rekab, which is the exact same root as the Rechabites, who are the Cainites. As you see here, the families of scribe that dwelt at Yabetz. There's that name again. And then it says, these are the Cainites who came from Hamath, the father of the house of Rechab. Same root, the Rechabites and these chariots. Again, Sisera, Yael, and Heber, all Cainites. And then we have this little hint of the Rechabites there who are Cainites in the story itself. So who are we talking about when we're talking about MEROZ? It's these Gerim, Noahides, and full-blown converts who did not come to the aid of Israel and God in the right time, even though they knew better. Curse MEROZ. One opinion is that this was a star, Sisera's protective star. According to others, this was a distinguished person who was near the battlefield but failed to appear. I would say maybe distinguished people, or people who knew right from wrong and knew one God and knew about Israel going all the way back to the beginning and did not act when they should have. Now, for more, I guess, evidence of my theory, if you take MEROZ, it has the value 253, which is the exact same value as Gerim, or strangers, or these converts, I suppose. But mostly strangers. We'll focus on the translation stranger, which is used for the first time in Exodus 22. You shall not wrong a stranger or oppress him, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Perhaps strangers is the best, most appropriate word for these extraterrestrials as well, if we were to ever meet them. You shall not oppress a stranger, for you know the feelings of the stranger, or the soul of the stranger, the nefesh of the stranger. Nefesh hager. Ki gerim. Here we have it. For yourselves have been strangers in the land of Egypt. So we said MEROZ and Gerim have the same value, 253. I'm going to show you something in gematria that is totally new and kind of astounding. It's the only instance I've ever seen of this phenomenon. So MEROZ 253, has the same value as Gerim. However, when you use atbash on the text of the Torah, it will substitute, every time there is an aleph, it will substitute a tav. Every time there is a beit, it will substitute a shin. So it's literally just turning the Hebrew alphabet 180 degrees, which is perfect because that's what Gerim do. They do 180 degree turns. That's exactly what Jethro did. So in English, anytime there was an A, they would replace it with a Z. Anytime there was a B, they'd replace it with a Y, and so on. What's so interesting about this word Gerim has the value 253, even when you apply atbash. Not only that, it uses the same letters. So let me show you what it would look like when you do the substitutes. Here's strangers. As you see here, Gerim in red has the value 253. You apply the atbash cipher, and it becomes this, using the exact same letters, and therefore has the value 253. Same letters and value, even when you totally turn around the Hebrew alphabet. Again, this is the only example I've ever come across. The only example I can think of that is similar, a similar phenomenon, not the same. Again, the only time I can think of it happening is in Numbers 13:33 with the spies, where it says, "We saw the Nephilim there, the Cainites, or the Bnei Anak." Again, they're those giants. We said the giants are connected to the Nephilim. Here it is in the text of the Torah. Now check this verse out because it's super weird. We saw the Nephilim there. The Anakites, or the Bnei Anak, the children of Anak, the giant, these are the giants we're talking about, are the part of the Nephilim. So notice here we have Nephilim twice, but it's spelled differently. So here, the second time you see it is the spelling that we most often see. And the difference is there's a yud right here. So all the same letters, except for there's an extra yud. So it's very interesting. Why would they have in the same verse two different spellings? Well, check this out. This is, again, you'll never see anything like this. You take the Nephilim here, and when you apply atbash and switch the Hebrew alphabet around again, it now, without this yud, has the same value as the ha-Nephilim with the yud. So when you apply atbash to the text of the Torah, this word here now has the same value as the original spelling. Again, these two things, these are the only two examples I've ever seen. And for those who are still not sure that the Nephilim are the Cainites, it's really, you can check out my videos on, actually called that, the Nephilim are the Cainites, or who are the Nephilim. But the Nephilim, it's just in regular gematria, has the value 215, which is the exact same value as the Nephilim, or as the Cainites, as found in 1 Chronicles 2:55. So what can we learn from all this? It's really MEROZ, and MEROZ really comes down to the responsibility of the God-fearing non-Jew to stand up for what's right when it comes to Israel and in the world in general. And it reminds me of the story of Pharaoh's three advisors, who are Jethro, Job, and Bilam. Bilam went along with Pharaoh's evil plot to wipe out all the Hebrew children or babies. Then Job kind of sat on the fence and said nothing. And Jethro left in protest and did not go along with it. And, think of all those who came from Jethro after that. And so it's just something for us to contemplate. This is really the most important role of the God-fearer in the world.